service delivery kickoff. Roll call. Councilor Brennan is still absent with notice. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, motion to approve the agenda. Councilor Canis, second by Councilor Derbyshire. All in favor? Carried. And we're joined electronically. And note to everybody though, we do have a Zoom meeting at 6 o'clock that many of us would like to or need to attend, so I'm gonna put a hard stop on it at 5:15. If that's okay, just notice for everybody. So I'm gonna turn it over to the folks from Strategy Corp.
Great, thank you very much, your worship, and thank you very much to members of council for taking this opportunity to meet with us. And again, thank you for hiring us to support you with the execution of your service delivery review. We're very much excited and eager to be working with you and municipal staff to undertake this project. And what the purpose of today's meeting is to kick the process off by sharing with you our understanding of the project, the approach that we're going to take to the project, including the timelines related to the project. And we'll share with you some of the analytical frames or tools that we're going to use to conduct the work that we're about to undertake together. And then we'll finish with some questions of you just to get your expectations for the project and what you want to see come out from the project, including identifying any of the things that you'd like us to explore or to help you better understand as we go through the project itself as well. We're not going to get into any specific issues or into problem solving or deep diving into any of the specific issues. This really is meant to provide a briefing to council on the project and our approach, some of the analytical frames that we're going to undertake, and then to ask you some questions again about things that we need to be mindful of from our perspective as we go through the project. Subsequent to this, we will be kicking off the process in earnest. And part of that process is to sit down with each one of you to get your perspectives on the organization, what you see as core and kind of discretionary in terms of the services that the municipality delivers, and understanding where you perhaps see challenges in terms of the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the organization or certain elements of the organization, or where you see increasing pressures as a result of the growth that the municipality is currently going through or is expected to continue to go through, and how those pressures within the organization in terms of its service delivery may be addressed. And so, as we go through this, please feel free to ask any questions. But what we would propose is that we go through the project approach and some of the analytical frames, so that we can then anchor in on the questions that we have for you, which will allow for you to ask questions about the approach, but also give us a chance to pick your brains on things that are important to you as we go through this review process. So in terms of project context and objectives, if we just, the team with you today from Strategy Corp, I apologize. It's myself, Chris Loretto. I will be the engagement principal for this assignment, and I'm joined, of course, by Julie Gagne, who you will have met at the shortlist presentation a few weeks back, and she will be our day-to-day engagement manager. And we're responsible for delivering this project to you. Then I'm also joined in our office here by Nabia Chowdhury and Komal Ayub, who will be the engagement analysts. They're the ones who make Julie and I look smart at the end of the day, doing all the hard work going through the project. In terms of the project context and objectives, again, we went through our understanding of this with you at our shortlist presentation, but just to refresh everybody in terms of why we're here and working together is, the municipality is obviously very committed to ensuring that it continues to deliver outstanding public services to the residents that it serves, and to make sure that those outstanding services are responsible, effective, and efficient. and that your corporate strategic plan underscores this commitment, and it wants to make sure that you're doing the very best to deliver what it is you have that you are delivering today, understanding where there might be opportunities to reimagine or rethink how services are delivered, where there might be opportunities to digitize some services, and where there's maybe opportunities to improve the who does what relationship between Strathroy-Caradoc and the county. Obviously, we understand that council and the administration is coming at this from a customer-first approach, making sure that you do have a municipality that is operationally efficient and is achieving some economies of scale in order to address some of the pressures that are coming to you as a result of your growth and your expected continued growth, which is going to be significant between now and kind of the midpoint of this century, and also making sure that you're optimally using the scarce resources that taxpayers entrust to you in delivering the public services that are important for a municipality to deliver. And so the objectives for this project obviously are to understand the services you provide, what is core and discretionary, where there's opportunities to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of those services, particularly where you do have discretion in terms of how you allocate and deploy your resources. We want to make sure as we go through this process that, part of being efficient and effective is understanding the organizational capacity you have and potentially some of the organizational capacity that you need, and how do you optimally structure that and deploy that so you are delivering things not just in a cost-effective manner, but you're delivering them in a manner that is creating value for the taxpayers in general, and for specific users or beneficiaries of the services that the municipality does provide to its residents and various stakeholders. And then obviously, in addition to looking at the state today and what things could look like in the future in terms of the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the operation, trying to ensure that we are bringing forward not just what is going to be better, kind of the day after we're done with this project as your consultants, but helping to make sure that we're arming you with an approach or a framework to continuous improvement to ensure that you're not only able to realize some of the benefits of the recommendations that will come out of this study, but you will have the internal organizational capacity to continue to be effective and efficient in the services that you use, because your staff will part of this process and understand how they can continue to work to improve the operation. So that's our understanding of the project context and objectives, and I'll turn it over to Julie to talk a bit about our approach, the timeline, and some of the analytical approaches that we'll be bringing to this assignment, so that you can, so that council can understand how we're going to tackle things.
And good evening through you, your worship, to members of council. Great to see you. So in terms of our approach, we will be taking a 4-phased approach to this project. The first phase, of course, we are within right now, which is project initiation. So we've had a kickoff meeting with the project's team on your end, and meeting with council tonight. Part of this process is to validate the schedule, the approach, the classification categories, how we will assess value, and to ensure general alignment with the project. Then we kick right off into phase 2, which is where we do quite a bit of desktop research and identify other ways of getting information through benchmark analysis, through stakeholder engagement. And we use all of that data to compile a current state report where we identify some initial improvement opportunities that we then workshop with council and with senior leadership team and the project team to develop through phase 3 a set of detailed recommendations and a revised organizational structure in draft form that we then bring back to council for another workshop to validate those consolidated recommendations, the revised organizational design and structure, and a draft implementation plan for further refinement through phase 4. And you'll see through phase 4 that we We draft out the full service delivery review report and present and review that with your leadership team, and then to council. Take it back, further make refinements based on council's feedback, and then submit it to you in its final format. So if we could skip ahead, you'll see through project schedule, and this is covered off in 2 slides. We've reflected on this schedule. The work in progress that we have, that's in yellow. So you'll see we keep close tabs on what work we should be doing when, and anything indicated in orange is a deliverable and or a presentation. So we've indicated those milestones for you within the schedule, and you'll see from the next slide that our proposed end date for this project is very early October. So we hope to have that final report to council the week of October 7th, and then we hand over all the materials and all of the raw data and hand off the project to your project team the week of October 14th. So if we could skip ahead, please. We do have, as part of this project, quite an extensive stakeholder engagement plan, wherein we will be undertaking one-on-one interviews with members of council, members of senior leadership team, mid-level management, frontline staff as identified by your team, as well as union representatives. We're also proposing workshops with senior leadership team members at key intervals throughout the project, as well as members of council. We will have a community survey and a staff survey, and everyone who is in Strathroy-Caradoc or affiliated with Strathroy-Caradoc will have the opportunity to provide a written submission, and that written submission will be received through an email address that is only administered by our team at Strategy Force. So we're able to collect information and data from anyone and everyone who wants to participate, and use that data to inform the current state and really help us shape out those recommendations that we'll be bringing forward to council early in phase 3. If we skip ahead, please. So a key component of this project, we know it's a service delivery review, but there is a core services review component that we have to do first. So we took a look at how you're classifying your services now, and saw through your 2024 budget that you group your services by discretionary or non-discretionary costs. And so our process, and I'm sure you've all had a chance to look at this information as part of your budget deliberation. So if we skip ahead, Nabiha, you'll see that we've built out the concept of mandatory versus discretionary even further, so that we're able to take all of your municipal services as part of the inventory work that we will be doing and classify them as either discretionary services, where you have the choice to provide them, you're not legally mandated to provide them, and it's really at council's discretion. So lots of flexibility, no legislative requirement there. So that's one classification category. There is also core discretionary. So this is an addition to the classification that you are already using. So these are services that are not legally mandated, but essentially no one else in the community is providing them. And so in some sense, the municipality is obliged to provide them, or feels obliged to provide them, because they aid in the community's functionality and well-being. So no, they're not legislated. There's low to medium flexibility in how you provide them, and some of that is deeply rooted in how services have been delivered in the past. And then we move into mandatory services. So there's 2 groups of mandatory services. One is truly mandatory, where heavily legislated and or regulated, where you have very little flexibility in how you are delivering that service. And the other is mandatory, where you have some discretion. So thinking about parks and rec services, I know you don't directly deliver public library services, but it is a great example of a service where you are obliged to provide it, but how you provide it is at council's discretion and subject to council's level of investment. So those are the categorization or classification categories within which we will be grouping your services as part of the service inventory. And if we just skip ahead, Navita, we provided an illustrative tool of how we will be using those classification categories when we consider each of your services. So, we walk through, is this program legislative, mandated, regulated? Is there a lot of stringent requirements that you are expected to adhere to? Yes or no? How much flexibility do you have in delivering that service? Low, medium, or high? And then that leads us to the classification of discretionary, core discretionary, mandatory with some discretion, or mandatory core services. So if we could skip ahead, Navika. So that really helps us assess your services by those 4 criteria, and we validate how we have categorized those services with council as part of that phase 3 workshop. So you'll be able to see and make necessary adjustments based on our understanding of how those services should be categorized. So another key aspect of the service delivery review is to evaluate the services that you're currently providing to the community. And as you know, many of you have been at this a long time, it is very hard to understand or place a value on the services that you are providing. Because value really includes a range of factors, including necessity, effectiveness, cost efficiency, accessibility, and impact on community well-being. So we have grouped all of those to be value indicators that we would be using as part of our inventory and the information we relay back to you about your services. And this assessment is going to allow council to ensure that its services are effectively meeting the needs of the community and contributing positively to the quality of life for residents. So we use these indicators to support and to guide our recommendations on service improvements, on realignment, and/or on discontinuation of services. So you can skip ahead, Navika, if you don't mind. We've also included here a value scorecard that we'll be using to assess services. So I know you've had this in advance, so I won't go line by line, but you'll see from the presentation here that each value indicator is further broken down to include some goals. What are we hoping to assess as part of this category? What questions are we hoping to address through the evaluation? The criteria with which we will apply to the value assessment, and how we'll gather that information. So what tools we'll be using to undertake this assessment. We've also included a scoring rubric, and you'll see that the scale that we've included is non-linear, and that is on purpose because the jump in points reflects an increasingly significant level of relevance. And if we skip ahead, there are a couple of these slides. We'll skip ahead to the cost versus value relationship. So we just wanted to show you, I know that's a lot of kind of methodology and an approach all grouped into 5 or 6 slides, but when we present this information back to you, we want you to know that we've come to these conclusions based on a pretty solid analysis of how you are delivering value and whether the services that you're providing are legislated or mandatory, or whether there's flexibility, whether you need to be in this business at all. And we will present it back to you by service using this tool here. So we'll summarize it using an evaluation of each. You'll be able to see whether a service is high cost and what's the value attributed to that service. So we'll have low, medium, and high for cost and value, and a categorization for each of the services. So if we skip ahead, I did indicate when we were talking about the phases of the project a little bit earlier that we are about to commence stakeholder engagement. So that is a very exciting step for our team as we engage one-on-one with members of council and members of your senior leadership team and start to bring together some groups of staff to have discussions about current state, future state, any challenges that they're facing, and really start to dig deep into the research component. So you're looking at policies, looking at, you know, strategic plans and other transformation that's already underway at your municipality. And we'll be issuing community and staff surveys in short order and start to compile that service inventory as we go, relying on your staff, of course, to give us some intel into the services that they're delivering, and then cross-referencing that against what we're hearing through stakeholder engagement, what we're hearing from the community about those services, and bringing all of that back to council soon for a workshop where we explore that current state. So I'll take a pause there and see if anyone has any questions before we jump into some questions that we have for you. So over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you to your team for the work, and I'll open it for questions. Well, I have two, and I'll get them out of the way, so through me to you. How do you propose to notify our residents of the survey? I'm going to imagine the answer is going to be through social media or through our website, but we do have a very large senior community, and we hear constantly or continually that they're not able to access that. So is there any plan, so this is either for you or our staff, to mail something to our residents informing them of the, I think you'll be okay with the electronic survey, it's just how are they gonna know about it? That's my first question.
So I'm happy through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council. In terms of how the survey is distributed to the community, we tend to provide guidance to your team who will help administer that survey within the community. So we provide advice as to local media outlets, so radio, newspaper, you know, the Gazette, MyFM, all of those spots as well. We propose and often, you know, really push for a hybrid approach. So you'll have print-based copies available in prominent public locations. So likely 34 Frank Street will have print-based locations. Other spots, senior center, wherever else in the community you can get groups of folks coming, have some copies of the survey available as well. You know, really push it out through social media, promote it on the website as a banner, all of those types of tips and tricks. So we provide the communication support to your team and then rely on them to help us get the word out there. As well, as part of our bi-weekly updates, we do provide status updates on the uptake for the public survey and the staff survey. So staff are well aware of the volume of responses that are coming in, which helps us kind of adjust the approach accordingly as we go. So that, you know, they may need an additional social media support. They may need, you know, another news release or, you know, note from the mayor. They may have to remind members of council to share it on their social media accounts. I think you get where I'm going with this, but if you have any follow-ups, I'm happy to take those, Mr. Mayor.
You're not just going to rely on one or two avenues. So there is possibility of a lot of avenues. That made me glad here. And then the last one, I know I'm allowed one follow-up because the deputy mayor has educated me on the procedures. If there's, I know you're going to have one-on-ones with council members, but what if there are local groups who wish to talk? It's a, you know, a service group or a group of senior, you know, or tradespeople who want. Is there a possibility of a round table with interested groups?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, so we do have the project scoped to include a specific amount of stakeholder engagement. There is some flexibility associated with that. So if there were, you know, kind of a couple of focus groups that we needed to have to make sure the business community is engaged, to make sure the, you know, there are other other stakeholders who council wanted us to engage. We just make adjustments based on, you know, maybe we don't have 2-hour focus groups in other areas. We have an hour and a half, and that frees up some capacity to have as many focus groups as, at least we'll consider as many focus groups as council and the project team would like us to undertake to ensure that this is a robust analysis that informs a final report that is of greatest use to council and the community.
Okay.
So we'll be flexible.
Thank you. Okay, open up for questions. Councillor Hipp.
Thank you. Through yourself, it's kind of along the same lines as what you were asking, Mr. Mayor. So when you were talking about that you would be reaching out, obviously you're reaching out to everyone within the municipality, but you also said in the surrounding areas as well. So we're very lucky because we have a large portion of the surrounding community members that use our facilities in various ways and are very important to those facilities because they bring the numbers up and they spend money and they do all of those great things that we always want people to do when they come and visit. So how do you reach the people that aren't living in our community but see our municipality as a necessity for their lives?
Councillor, I think that's a great question. And so on one hand, we rely on the project team and our council through the one-on-one conversations that we're having. We do ask, you know, is there anyone else you think we should talk to as part of this process? You know, we present a stakeholder engagement guide that we hope captures everyone that you would like to have engaged as part of this process, but certainly make those changes as we go. We also hope that through other outlets, you know, we have the email opportunity, survey opportunity for those folks. If they provide information through email and say, we would like you to connect with us, then we'll certainly do that. I think those are our best ways of connecting with those individuals. So either relying on staff to bring them forward, they either self-identify through the engagement tools that we are providing, or counselors bring this to our attention. I hope that addresses your question.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Wilsey.
This review, there's a lot of things that are non-discretionary that we can't change, and most of that are the services we have to deliver. As part of your review, are you going to be looking at how duties are formed and whether departments are siloed and whether there is some efficiencies that can be gained by just changing how the duties of staff are going? And also in that same kind of vein, when you look at our budget spend and how we're doing it, whether that's capital or operations, are you going to be looking at kind of that mix and make some suggestions to use more capital or use less capital, less operations, just to get that balance better, or is that outside of the scope of what you're doing?
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So the short answer to the first part of the question, actually to both questions, is yes. So in addition to some, Julie kind of outlining systematically how we get to an analysis, implicit in each service that we look at kind of, what policy is guiding this, what processes are used to deliver the services. In those processes, where there are interdependencies and or where there may be their opportunity to bring parts of the organization together to create some resilience or redundancy in the service or to improve the overall service delivery, and also looking at that procedure. Is it clear that there's standard operating procedures? Or is it clear that there are service level expectations for which the processes and the procedures are designed to achieve? So we do look at those. And part of the service delivery review may not just look at those elements and how we improve processes and procedures. We may actually end up looking at and coming to you with advice on, how the organization may need to be structured or restructured in certain areas in order to achieve some of those greater efficiencies to support service delivery. In terms of looking at capital versus operating, I don't know that. Certainly we'll be able to help you understand how your assets are being used to deliver service. And we have from in some of our other experience come forward with recommendations as to how you improve the efficiency in the deployment of those, or how you reallocate resources based on where the need is and where efficiencies can be gained, so that you can move that capacity or that resource over to where it can be put to a higher and better use.
Any other questions? Councillor Pelkman.
Yes, thank you, through the mayor, to, I'm not sure who's going to answer this, but I know through my own work that it's pretty easy to analyze what you are doing. How do you catch what we're not doing through this process?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great question, and that's why the interviews and the stakeholder engagement is so important, because it's usually through that process, including engaging with staff, where we not only come to understand what it is you're doing, but also come to understand where there are gaps, either in existing services or where there may just be services missing, and there's an expectation around the municipality facilitating that service in some way, whether through directly delivering it on its own or trying to be part of a solution in another respect to provide that. The other thing that is the stakeholder engagement is very helpful for, again, is to identify things you should stop doing, right? And oftentimes in our experience, and I think we talked a little bit about our approach in the shortlist meeting about the reason why it's important to kind of co-create and involve you and your staff in all of this is your business best. And we often find folks are comfortable in coming forward and saying, this is what's really working. Here's how we can fine tune things. Here, the gaps we're noticing. And oh, by the way, here are things we could perhaps stop doing in order to free up some capacity, either to address those gaps in their specific area, or free that capacity up to be deployed into other areas of the municipal administration to support things that have demand and resident expectations attached to them.
Other questions?
The other thing too is we do the benchmarking against other municipalities, so that between our own review of your operation, looking at you relative to benchmark municipalities, and what we get from the stakeholder engagement, those three data points, we triangulate those and use that to give us a sense for what needs to be true to improve the overall efficiency and effectiveness of specific elements of your operation, and the overall organization for general.
Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you, through you to the board. What is a simple way to explain this to the common folk to get them more engaged in actually doing the survey? I don't want a whole bunch of technical terms. There's a whole lot of that in here. I need a simple explanation to explain to my 82-year-old father why he should do this review. And I don't want to say it's to look at, cutting staff or more staff, or I just am looking for some way to explain what this is when somebody says to me, what is this and why should I do this? So if there's a simple way to...
Councillor Derbyshire is looking for the elevator pitch. That's the thing what we all need, right? We all need the 30-second elevator pitch.
Well, I think through you, Your Worship, the simple reason why you're doing this is you want to go and understand from your residents, how can we better serve you, right? And so if you're a small business in your community, you're frequently asking your customers what it is, how they're liking the service, what it is about the service or product that you're providing that can be improved, and you using that to inform how it is you do it, how you provide that product or how you provide that service, so that they keep on being happy customers and keep on coming through your doors for what it is you're providing. I think it's the same thing here. You're doing, you want to make sure that what you're providing is making people happy, and if they have ideas as to how you can better do it, we want to hear from them. We want to hear from them, and we want to be able to use that to ensure that they continue to be happy with the services that their local government's providing.
Okay, any other questions? All right, time to spare.
So, Your Worship, we have some questions for you.
Okay, that's great. Love answering questions. They're never short our answers.
Excellent. So just a few things here, and again, through your questions, I think we get a sense of what councillors are thinking about in terms of what's important to be included in this process and/or some of the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve from this process. But we do want to ask you, and we didn't have a chance to kind of get into this discussion when we were doing our shortlist, but from a council perspective, what objectives do you have for this service delivery review? And are there any specific service delivery outcomes or benchmarks or levels of performance that you aim to meet? And you would say, consultants, we really need you to wrap your heads around these things and tell us how we can do it better or how we can do it differently.
Well, I wonder if the best way to do this, since we have time, if we go around the horseshoe, and if we can quickly, each of us, answer those 3 questions in a couple of minutes. We have time, so Deputy Mayor, if you have something, that's great. Just seems to be the best way. Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay, I do that to you once in a while.
All the time.
Objectives. Probably one of many things I'm looking for is, do we have the appropriate mix of technology use and direct customer-client interaction? So certainly COVID sent us into a technology ramp up, which is great. I'm 100% for that. But at times it was at the expense of direct person-to-person service delivery. So I'd be looking for that balance or some sort of comment about that when we're delivering services. I'm also looking for, Strathroy-Caradoc is lower tier to the upper tier county. So how does that relationship exist from an outside point of view? When you look down upon it, we have 2 levels of government, both providing services. At the end of the day, both in our community, you have 2 levels of government providing the same type of services through your municipal taxes. So are we taking the best advantage of those 2 levels of government? Is there efficiencies to be had there? You probably get the gist of what I'm asking or suggesting there. I think that's all. Thanks.
Okay. Did you want to offer anything, Councillor Pammer? I mean to put you on the spot. But...
Yeah. No, I would just say that really efficiencies, I think that's what I would like to get out of it. If we understand if there are places we could be doing things better, more efficiently, or areas that we're neglecting and we need to adjust resources, I think that would be helpful for us as a council and planning and budgeting going forward. So that's all I have done. Thanks.
Councillor Derbyshire?
Thank you. Through you to them. I guess what I'd like to see is our structure set up the way it should be. Do we have the departments we need? Are the people that are there in the right columns? Should we have other things, or do we need to possibly create, a different title? Because there's just things that don't, I just more wanna see the structure kind of looked at, brought together and made sure that we're kind of running in the right direction for headed into the future. That's, I guess, one of the things.
Councillor Kaufman?
Yep, thank you. Two things. So I think for too many years, Strathroy-Caradoc ran short of people. And, we're dealing with some of those problems because things were dealt with quickly because they had to be. So I'm not really too interested in cutting, but maybe making sure we can have increased capacity with the staff that we have. And the second is, I suspect in the public consultation process, specifically online, there will be a very noisy group of individuals who constitute a very small percentage of the population who I suspect will dominate the online portion. And I'm just want to make sure that that's somehow filtered or doesn't dominate the landscape and affect our policy too much.
Greg?
I'm mostly concerned about departments being siloed, duplication of work between different departments where the same departments are looking at the same information as things are coming through, just thinking of permits and things like that. Also, with some of the business stuff I've been working on, I've been hearing a lot about calling workers back into the office because a lot of the knowledge transfer that's happening, it just kind of happens organically between people in different departments when they're around the water cooler, they're getting coffee, they're in the parking lot. When you work from home, you lose a lot of that. So and as companies are going forward, what they're finding is when people first worked from home during COVID, it was okay because everyone had that knowledge and they knew who they worked with. But as we've had turnover, the more turnover you get, the less effective work from home gets and your productivity keeps going down. So just to keep an eye on that and see if we need to have more time for staff to organically meet with each other and be in the office rather than working from home.
Councillor Kennis?
Kind of repeat what the deputy mayor said about technology and the way the municipality operates, and just to give to try to explain what I'm saying, I'll give an example. I guess it's the simplest one would be collecting property taxes. So collecting that from everywhere, from the simplest form for the municipality, like a direct debit that comes from the homeowner's bank account directly to the municipality, and really very little hands involved, to the point where I suppose people would walk in with a bag of cash to pay their property taxes, and certainly the costs associated with the inefficiencies of collecting taxes that way. And I guess, do we have to make a decision? Do we serve our residents in whatever way they want to be served, or do we serve our residents in a way that's most efficient for the operation of the municipality? If that makes sense, what I'm saying. So, where's the right or sweet spot to be when it comes to delivering those types of things?
Okay. The first time I was in this building, my father sent me in with a bag of cash to pay his taxes. Councillor Hippel.
Thank you. Two things, but I think everyone is really, the word efficiency has been used various times. But I think, as we get bigger, as we look down the road, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, the efficiencies are key because, we need to make sure that things are running well, effective inside here so that we are ready and prepared for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and for when for anything really, because as upper level government comes down and changes things, are we prepared for that? Do we have enough staff that can function with those changes? But the other thing I also wanted to say is that I really think we need to make sure that we're providing services equally, and when I say equally, I don't mean 50-50, but equally throughout our whole entire municipality. I mean, we've got rural areas, we've got the urban areas, we've got slices of certain like we're in the middle of certain municipalities, and we're a bit of our own entity where we have so many, we're on the cusp of so many different areas, and all of those areas are extremely important. And how do we make sure that everyone, every community member and every business and everyone that wants to come in is provided those services well, effectively, and equally? That's mine.
Greg, and then you had your hand up and all.
Just one more quick comment. Just listening as we're going through and as I was thinking, I think one of the most important things we have to remember as we're going through this is that we are not the customer, we are the supplier. Our customer is the taxpayer. They're the ones who pay all the salaries. We get our money from the taxes that we collect, and we have to make sure that the people who are providing that the service is what they want. It's not what our staff want, it's what the people want, and that we have to be giving the service that they want, not what our staff want to deliver. So I think that's, I've been listening around the room, I've heard a lot about staff, and I was thinking that was the key point talking to the public has been, we need to deliver the service that the public wants. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna end, and I actually want to focus on your third question, and the part that says, what we'd like you to understand about our community and its needs in relation to the municipal services. And I'm sure, Julie, I know your past life, you'll understand when I say we're becoming urbanized very quickly. And I use the word, it's not a good word, we're a little bit schizophrenic in that we're changing. And we're in the midst of change. I know at the county we use the word urbanized a lot. So I think that's important to remember that we're in the midst of a change, both culturally, and our people are changing, and the wants and needs of our citizens. We're having people migrating from the GTA. We're becoming more diverse, right? And even though, you know, Councillor Hippel used rural, we still have those sensibilities. So it's not the most elegant term I've been able to come up with, but we are. We're a little bit schizophrenic, and we're diverse, and we're changing, and we're changing very rapidly. And the wants and needs, I suspect, when you do your surveys, you're going to see some different things from different people. You know, you're going to see that some of the people who moved here lately are going to have different wants and needs. So I think that's the most important thing I want to tell your group, and I'm sure you already know it, that like a lot of rural areas, small towns, are undergoing very rapid change, and that's something I'd like you to be aware of. So with that, no more questions, comments. I'd like to thank you for your time. That's great. Look forward to completing this. So thank you very much. Motion, so I guess it's a consideration of bylaws, correct, Clerk? That's where we're at.
Thank you, Chair. So the only bylaw before Council this evening is to confirm the proceedings of this evening's meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc. The recommendation is that bylaw 7224 receive first, second, and third and final reading.
Motion that bylaw 7224 receive first, second, and third and final reading. Councillor Hippel, second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Carried. Next meeting is Tuesday, August the 6th. Motion to adjourn at 4:49. Councillor Palmer, second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, folks. Awesome. Thank you.
Happy belated birthday, Julie.
Thank God.
Heck, almost 3
We need a break.